Since its inception in 1977, the Star Wars saga has transcended its status as a mere film series. It has become a foundational pillar of modern mythology. Like the ancient tales of gods and heroes that preceded it, its narrative operates on a grand scale. It explores timeless themes of destiny, redemption, and the eternal struggle between light and dark. Yet the vitality of a myth is not solely determined by its original telling. It is equally sustained by the audience that receives it, interprets it, and breathes new life into its corners. This dynamic relationship between creator and consumer is the fertile ground from which fan theories spring. These theories are not, as is sometimes mistakenly assumed, simple acts of wish fulfillment or narrative corrections. Instead, they represent a deep, analytical, and profoundly creative engagement with the source material. They are the result of an audience treating the galaxy far away not as a passive spectacle, but as a living text, a universe so richly detailed that its shadows and silences demand explanation. In this way, the act of theorizing is a fundamental expression of fandom itself, a testament to the enduring power of George Lucas's creation to inspire not just wonder, but rigorous inquiry and imaginative speculation. The true merit of these speculative narratives lies not in their canonicity. Instead, their value is found in their ability to recontextualize and deepen our understanding of the established story. They function as critical lenses, forcing a re-examination of character motivations, plot conveniences, and seemingly minor details. This process reveals a fascinating duality within the Star Wars narrative structure: the official canon presented on screen, and a shadow canon built from implication and inference. It is crucial, however, to distinguish between these layers of narrative: the current Disney canon, the expansive Legends continuity of the pre-Disney era, and the pure, unsanctioned fan theory. Each occupies a different space. The first is binding. The second is a rich tapestry of alternative history. The third is the realm of pure intellectual play. Engaging with these theories is an exercise in narrative archaeology. It is not about proving a theory correct, but about appreciating the creative spark it ignites. The what-if question possesses its own unique power. It challenges passive consumption. It invites the audience to become co-creators, if only within the confines of their own imagination. This engagement proves the enduring strength of the source material. A story must be robust and compelling to withstand such intense scrutiny and reinterpretation. Therefore, these unknown theories are not attacks on the official story. They are its highest form of compliment, a testament to a universe so complete, it feels as if it must have secrets yet to be uncovered. Analyzing these fan-created shadow narratives is not a frivolous pursuit, but a critical methodology that reveals hidden complexities within the Star Wars saga. These theories highlight the profound creative power of the fandom, demonstrating how a dedicated audience can mine a text for deeper meaning. Our exploration will be structured across 5 distinct chapters, each focusing on a specific category of theory. We begin with the most infamous conspiracy, the Darth Jar Jar theory, using it as a foundational case study in persuasive fan argumentation. From there, we will examine theories of hidden manipulation, where characters like Padme or R2-D2 are reimagined as deliberate architects of fate. The third chapter will investigate theories that recontextualize tragedy, offering new, often darker, motivations for the actions of figures like Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. Our fourth chapter will delve into the realm of the grand deception. This journey through the fandom's collective imagination will ultimately illustrate a simple truth: the Force is strong with the audience, whose boundless curiosity ensures the galaxy far away continues to expand far beyond the screen. Chapter 1: The Grand Deception, the Darth Jar Jar. Theory: the Star Wars galaxy is a tapestry of heroes and villains, of light and dark. Yet some of its most compelling stories are not found on the screen, but in the spaces between the frames, Among these, one theory stands apart for its audacity, a theory that challenges the very foundation of the prequel trilogy. This is the theory of Darth Jar Jar. It begins with a simple, yet radical, proposition that the character of Jar Jar Binks was never what he seemed, that his clumsiness was a mask, his foolishness a weapon, his entire existence a carefully constructed lie. According to this hypothesis, Jar Jar was in fact a Sith Lord, a master of deception operating in plain sight. His mission, to manipulate events from a position of perceived insignificance, to guide the galaxy toward tyranny, while everyone laughed at the clown. The theory forces a complete re-evaluation of his journey. His exile from Otoh Gunga was not an accident. It was a calculated maneuver, placing him directly in the path of the Jedi Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. His discovery of the underwater route to Theed was not luck. It was guidance. His bizarre, flailing combat during the droid invasion, a style some have called Gungan drunken master, was not comedy. It was the subtle display of a highly trained warrior. Every trip, every fumble, every mispronounced word is re-examined as a deliberate act, a performance designed to ensure he was never taken seriously. This performance allowed him to ascend to levels of political power with breathtaking speed, from outcast to Bombad General, from general to galactic representative. Each step appears as a fortunate accident, but the theory suggests it was a coldly efficient climb. The theory culminates in one pivotal moment: the granting of emergency powers to Chancellor Palpatine. On the surface, this is the ultimate blunder by a naive fool, the single act that seals the Republic's fate. The Darth Jar Jar theory presents an alternative, that it was the theory's grand finale, a deliberate and knowing transfer of absolute authority to his Sith ally. This transforms Jar Jar Binks from a mere supporting character into a central architect of the Galactic Empire, a shadowy figure whose influence may have been greater than even Darth Sidious himself. The Jedi Order, for all its wisdom, never sensed the threat. They were looking for a monster in the shadows. They failed to see the one dancing in the light. The argument for Darth Jar Jar is built upon a forensic re-examination of key scenes from The Phantom Menace. Evidence that proponents argue was deliberately placed by the filmmakers as a subtle narrative thread. The first and most compelling piece of evidence is his physical prowess, which consistently defies his clumsy persona in a manner that cannot be easily dismissed as mere chance. During the droid invasion of Naboo, Jar Jar is seen engaging in a series of complex, acrobatic maneuvers, his body flailing in a way that perfectly, almost miraculously, avoids blaster fire. This is not the desperate scrambling of a coward. It is a highly stylized form of combat, reminiscent of the Teräs Käsi martial art or Zui Quan, the drunken boxing of Earth, a fighting style based on deceptive, unpredictable movement designed to confuse and disarm opponents. Each stumble becomes a precise dodge, each trip a strategic repositioning. This is not luck. It is a display of supreme kinetic awareness and proprioception, skills that align more with force-sensitive combatants like Jedi or Sith than with a simple Gungan soldier. The coordination required to fall, spin, and land without injury while under fire suggests a deep, innate connection to the flow of battle. A connection the theory attributes to the Force. His manipulation of events extends beyond the battlefield into the realm of social and political engineering. His dialogue, often dismissed as simplistic comic relief, is re-evaluated for its profound, strategic impact on the plot. When he tells Qui-Gon Mui Mui about the underwater planet core, he is not merely admiring the view, he is actively guiding the Jedi to the very path that will lead them directly into the heart of Theed. Bypassing the droid army entirely, when he exclaims, "Wessa goin' home," upon seeing the Gungan army, he is not just expressing relief. He is ensuring the alliance that will serve as the essential diversion for the final attack on the palace. Every utterance, every exclamation, serves a distinct purpose, propelling the narrative toward an outcome that perfectly benefits the Sith plan to create a crisis and elevate Palpatine. His control over other characters is equally suggestive. He is able to sway the notoriously stubborn and isolationist Boss Nass with surprising ease, securing an entire army for Queen Amidala, an act of persuasion and diplomacy that seems far beyond the capabilities of the bumbling exile he pretends to be. This indicates a keen understanding of psychology and leverage, traits of a master manipulator. Perhaps the most subtle and chilling piece of evidence lies in a detail often overlooked: the synchronization of Jar Jar's mouth movements with the speech of other characters. Keen-eyed viewers have noted specific instances, particularly with Padme Amidala, where as another character begins to speak, Jar Jar's lips can be seen moving in a manner that suggests he is forming the words a fraction of a second before they are spoken. This is most apparent in group scenes on Naboo and, later on, Coruscant, where Jar Jar stands silently in the background, his mouth subtly moving as if he is whispering the lines that Queen Amidala or Senator Palpatine then deliver aloud. This phenomenon is interpreted by theorists not as an animation error, but as a deliberate cinematic clue, a visual representation of a Sith power known as Force persuasion, or a more insidious form of mental domination. The theory posits that Jar Jar is not just influencing events through suggestion, he is directly implanting thoughts and commands into the minds of key figures, guiding their decisions while maintaining his facade of simplicity. This would explain Padme's unexpected and immediate trust in him, and her swift appointment of him to a position of galactic authority. It recontextualizes his frequent silence in critical meetings, suggesting he is not listening, but actively controlling the conversation from within the minds of the participants. The most overt damning evidence, however, lies in his rapid and inexplicable political ascent and his subsequent actions on the galactic stage. His appointment as a representative to the Galactic Senate is the ultimate culmination of his long-term deception in the Galactic Capital. He is a fish out of water, his ridiculous appearance and behavior making him an object of open ridicule and condescension. This, the theory argues, is his perfect camouflage. From this position of perceived absolute incompetence, he delivers his masterstroke. It is Jar Jar Binks, and no one else, who stands before the Senate and proposes the motion to grant Chancellor Palpatine emergency powers. The very act that creates the legal framework for the Empire and the dissolution of the Republic. The film frames this as a tragic error by a well-meaning simpleton, a pawn in Sidious's game. But the theory reframes it as the deliberate, calculated, and triumphant action of a Sith operative achieving his ultimate goal. Uses the trust earned through his fabricated persona, and perhaps through subtle mental influence, to single-handedly dismantle a 1,000-year-old democracy. This single speech is the key that unlocks Sidious's absolute authority. And it was, spoken by the character everyone was meant to underestimate. When all this evidence is combined, the physical prowess, the strategic dialogue, the suggestive mouth movements, and the political masterstroke, the case for Darth Jar Jar transforms. From a wild speculation into a coherent, if unproven, interpretation of the text, painting a picture not of a fool, but of a phantom menace who expertly manipulated the entire galaxy by hiding in the most obvious place of all, directly in front of everyone's eyes, using their own prejudices and assumptions as his primary weapon. The textual evidence for Darth Jar Jar is compelling, but the theory gains significant traction when examined through the lens of film production and the original intentions of the creative team. This line of inquiry suggests that the character we saw in the final film was a last-minute alteration, a shadow of a much more significant and sinister role that was ultimately abandoned. The most frequently cited piece of production evidence comes from actor Ahmed Best himself, who revealed that Jar Jar Binks was initially conceived as a fully digital character, inspired by the rubber-limbed physical comedy of Buster Keaton. This original concept aligns perfectly with the theory's interpretation of his movements as a deliberate, drunken master fighting style, not as random clumsiness. Furthermore, Best stated that George Lucas had a grand, multi-film arc planned for the Gungan, an arc that was drastically scaled back following the intensely negative audience reaction to the character after The Phantom Menace's release. This admission is crucial. It confirms that Jar Jar's journey was meant to evolve in a substantial way, a plan that was derailed by fan reception. This idea of a changed narrative is supported by an analysis of the film's promotional material and early scripts. In the official poster for The Phantom Menace, Jar Jar Binks is positioned prominently, alongside the primary heroes and villains. His placement suggests the importance that his final, comedic role does not fully justify. More tellingly, early script drafts and story treatments reportedly contained scenes that further elaborated on Jar Jar's connection to the Force, including moments where he would display unexplained knowledge or abilities. These scenes, theorists argue, were the building blocks of his reveal as a Force-sensitive being. When the backlash hit, these elements were minimized or removed in the subsequent films, reducing him to a mere cameo in Attack of the Clones and a largely silent figure in Revenge of the Sith. This devolution from a central figure to a background extra is seen not as a natural character progression, but as the visible scar of a massive narrative rewrite. The theory also finds resonance in George Lucas's own storytelling patterns. Lucas has a well-documented history of planting subtle clues that pay off in later installments. The most famous example being the early hint that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father. Proponents of the Darth Jar Jar theory argue that this was simply Lucas employing the same technique again, seeding the Phantom Menace with visual and narrative hints that would have culminated in a shocking reveal in Episode 2 or 3. The character's design, with his long, droopy ears and facial structure that can easily appear sinister in low light, is also cited as a possible intentional visual clue. The production evidence, when combined with the textual analysis, paints a picture of a bold, creative vision that was ultimately sacrificed to appease a frustrated fan base. The ghost of this original narrative, they contend, still haunts every frame of The Phantom Menace, a phantom menace within the film itself, a compelling what-if that remains one of the most fascinating lost possibilities in cinematic history. The Darth Jar Jar theory, while never confirmed, has left an indelible mark on Star Wars fandom and the broader culture of film analysis. Its true legacy is not in proving a character's hidden identity, but in fundamentally altering how audiences engage with cinematic texts. The theory exploded into mainstream awareness through a single, meticulously detailed Reddit post in 2015. This post did not simply state an idea, it built a forensic case, compiling visual evidence, dialogue analysis, and production history into a compelling narrative. This methodical approach transformed the theory from a silly joke into a serious topic of debate, captivating fans and critics alike. It demonstrated the power of collective intelligence, where thousands of viewers could scour a film frame by frame to build a collective argument. The impact was profound. The theory created a new paradigm for analyzing the Star Wars prequels. It encouraged fans to look past the surface-level criticisms of dialogue and pacing, and to search for deeper, more complex narrative layers. It forced a re-evaluation of George Lucas's authorial intent, suggesting that perceived flaws might actually be misunderstood subtleties. This analytical framework spilled over into other franchises, inspiring fans to re-examine characters and plot points in movies and television shows with a more critical and suspicious eye. The X was a secret villain all along trope gained new life, fueled by the audacious example set by Darth Jar Jar. Furthermore, the theory granted Jar Jar Binks a form of redemption. The character, once universally reviled, was suddenly fascinating. The theory gave him a tragic grandeur, transforming him from a mere annoyance into a potentially brilliant and tragic figure. A master of deception who sacrificed his dignity for a cause. This shift in perception highlights the power of narrative to rehabilitate even the most maligned characters. The Darth Jar Jar theory ultimately stands as a testament to the enduring vitality of the Star Wars universe. It proves that the saga is not a closed book, but a living text that continues to evolve and generate new meaning long after the cameras have stopped rolling. It cemented the idea that within the galaxy far, far away, the most compelling stories are sometimes the ones we tell ourselves. Chapter 2: Architects of Fate, Theories of Hidden Manipulation and Control. The tragedy of Padme Amidala is a cornerstone of the prequel trilogy, a story of an idealistic leader crushed by the very war she sought to prevent, a shining example of democracy extinguished by the tyranny she fought against. Yet a compelling and deeply unsettling theory reframes this entire tragedy, suggesting she was not merely a victim of Sidious's machinations, but an unwitting, yet perfectly positioned, instrument of them from the very beginning of her political career. This theory posits that Senator Palpatine of Naboo did not simply exploit the Trade Federation's blockade. He may have orchestrated, or at the very least foreseen, the crisis with the specific purpose of elevating his own political career and, more importantly, placing his young, malleable, and fiercely loyal protégé, Queen Amidala, into a position of galactic influence and moral authority. Her entire rise, according to this view, was a long-term investment by the Sith Lord, a carefully cultivated asset that would yield immense returns over the next decade. The evidence for this deep connection begins with their shared origin on Naboo, a connection that Sidious leverages masterfully throughout The Phantom Menace. His guidance of the 14-year-old queen is portrayed as avuncular and supportive, but the theory suggests it was deeply calculated from the outset. He instructs her to call for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum, an act that seems like a desperate political maneuver from a besieged queen, but which in reality perfectly clears the path for his own ascent to the highest office in the Republic, Padme. In her steadfast trust of her trusted mentor from home becomes the key that unlocks the chancellorship for him, a move that appears to be her own initiative but was subtly planted by her master. This pattern of manipulation continues and intensifies in Attack of the Clones, where her survival of an assassination attempt is used as the primary justification for granting the Chancellor the power to create a grand army. The very army Palpatine desperately needs to execute his clone wars. Her value as a pawn is immense. She is the perfect figurehead, morally upright and widely respected, whose genuine pleas for security and stability can be manipulated to sanction the Sith's most consequential power grabs. She provides a virtuous facade for his authoritarian ambitions. The theory delves deeper into the nature of her relationship with Anakin Skywalker, a relationship that, from this perspective, seems almost too convenient for Sidious's goals. As Padme's protector, Anakin is drawn into close proximity with the Chancellor, who can then begin his corruption away from the Jedi Temple. The secret marriage creates a powerful emotional vulnerability in the Jedi Order's most powerful knight, a vulnerability that Palpatine expertly exploits. Padme, entirely unaware, becomes the central pillar in the plot to turn Anakin to the dark side. Her pregnancy, which should be a moment of pure joy, is instead the catalyst for his fall, as Sidious uses visions of her death to push Anakin over the edge. Every step of their romance, while genuine on their part, plays directly into the Sith Lord's grand design. The theory culminates in the mystery of her death. A medical droid on Polis Massa explicitly states there is no medical explanation for her rapid decline. She is physically healthy but has simply lost the will to live. The popular fan theory that Palpatine used a Sith ritual to drain her life force to sustain the newly transformed Darth Vader is incorporated here as a plausible mechanism. But the broader narrative point is that her death, however achieved, serves Sidious's ultimate goals with perfect efficiency. It eliminates a powerful, charismatic, and popular leader who could have become a formidable focal point for early rebellion. It severs Vader's last emotional connection to his past, ensuring his full and complete immersion in the dark side by destroying his last reason to hope. And it removes the mother of his potentially powerful children from the board. From Sidious's perspective, Padmé's purpose was fulfilled the moment Anakin pledged himself to the Sith, making her a liability to be discarded. This theory transforms Padmé's story from one of simple bad luck and a broken heart into a chilling narrative of Sith orchestration, where every aspect of her life, from her coronation as queen to her death on a remote asteroid, was meticulously managed to build an empire. She was the perfect puppet, her strings pulled so deftly by the kindly senator from Naboo that she never once suspected her trusted mentor was her true phantom menace, a puppet master who used her light to create his darkness. The character of Han Solo stands as a testament to rugged individualism in the Star Wars galaxy, a smuggler and scoundrel who proudly declares his reliance on blasters and fast ships over what he dismisses as ancient religions and hokey superstitions. Yet a fascinating theory posits that Han Solo is the most tragically unaware, Force-sensitive individual in the saga, a man whose entire life of incredible luck and improbable survival is not mere chance, but the result of a powerful, unconscious connection to the Force that he himself would vehemently deny. This theory recontextualizes his journey from a story of a selfish man learning to care into something far more profound, the story of a latent instrument of the Force itself, guided by an invisible hand to play a crucial role in the restoration of cosmic balance. His skepticism of the Force becomes the ultimate irony, a powerful wielder blind to the source of his own power. The evidence for this theory is woven throughout the original trilogy in the form of Han's seemingly supernatural luck. His ability to navigate the treacherous asteroid field in The Empire Strikes Back is presented as piloting skill, but the odds of success were so astronomically low that C-3PO explicitly calculated them at 3,720 to 1, odds that defy mere human skill and suggest a form of precognition or intuitive guidance. His legendary Kessel Run, where he allegedly made the journey in less than 12 parsecs, a unit of distance, not time, suggests an ability to manipulate spatial routes in a way that transcends normal navigation, an ability that could be explained by sensing safer, shorter paths through the Force. Even his signature move of shooting the alien bounty hunter Greedo first in the Mos Eisley Cantina can be seen as a form of enhanced reflexes, a split-second reaction time that borders on premonition, allowing him to act a crucial moment before his opponent. This pattern of improbable success culminates in what theorists call the butterfly effect of the stick on the forest moon of Endor, a seemingly minor event that triggers the entire chain of events leading to the Empire's downfall. When Han Solo accidentally steps on a twig in the forest, the resulting snap alerts an Imperial scout trooper. This leads to a speeder bike chase, which results in Leia becoming separated and being captured by the Ewoks. This capture directly leads to the Ewoks viewing C-3PO as a god and deciding to ally with the rebellion. Without this alliance, the Rebel strike team would have been quickly overwhelmed by the Imperial Legion on the moon. The shield generator would not have been destroyed, and the Rebel fleet would have been annihilated by the Death Star's super laser. Therefore, according to this theory, the entire galactic civil war was won because of Han Solo's clumsy footstep. An event so random, it could only be the Force manipulating events through its most unwilling agent. Han's own dialogue consistently reinforces this idea of a power he cannot see, his famous retort to Luke in A New Hope. Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side. Kid, is followed immediately by his survival of an Imperial boarding party and a successful flight from Tatooine. His boast about luck is not just arrogance, it may be an unconscious acknowledgement of a phenomenon he does not understand. His journey from cynic to hero, from someone who shoots first to someone who comes back to save the day at the Battle of Yavin, mirrors a kind of spiritual awakening, not to the Jedi Code, but to the will of the Force itself, guiding him to where he needs to be. His ultimate role as a general in the Rebel Alliance and a founding figure of the New Republic is the fulfillment of this latent destiny. The theory does not suggest Han could move objects with his mind or see the future with clarity, but that the Force flowed through him as intuition, as luck, as an unerring sense of timing that made him the galaxy's ultimate gambler. A man who was never truly gambling at all, but following a path the Force had laid out for him. His greatest failure was his inability to recognize the source of his greatest strength, making him one of the most powerful and tragic figures in the saga. A hero who saved the galaxy while believing the power that enabled him was a fairy tale. Chapter 3. Recontextualizing Tragedy. Theories of Motive and Survival. The incineration of Owen and Beru Lars is a pivotal moment of horror in A New Hope, a stark demonstration of the Empire's brutality that severs Luke Skywalker's last ties to Tatooine and propels him into the galactic conflict. The official narrative places the blame squarely on the detachment of stormtroopers who tracked the droids from the Jawa sandcrawler to the moisture farm, a straightforward chain of military investigation. However, a chilling and deeply cynical theory proposes a far more sinister architect for the massacre: Obi-Wan Kenobi himself. This theory reframes the wise old hermit not as a gentle guardian, but as a ruthless pragmatist who deliberately orchestrated or allowed the deaths of Luke's guardians to force the boy onto the path of destiny. It suggests that Obi-Wan, haunted by his catastrophic failure with Anakin, was willing to commit a monstrous act to ensure the galaxy's last hope could not refuse. His call to adventure, viewing the sacrifice of 2 innocent lives as a necessary cost for trillions. The foundation of this theory lies in a critical analysis of Obi-Wan's actions and knowledge immediately following the droid's arrival at the Lars homestead. After Luke discovers R2-D2's missing message and is attacked by Tusken Raiders, he is rescued by Obi-Wan, who then reveals a universe of Jedi, the Force, and galactic conflict. When Luke initially rejects this call, expressing his duty to his aunt and uncle on the moisture farm, Obi-Wan responds not with understanding, but with a tone of grim inevitability. His warning about the Empire is specific and foreboding, rather than offering reassurance or a plan to protect the Lars family. He speaks of the Empire's inevitable discovery of the droids with an almost prophetic certainty. His knowledge of Imperial procedure is extensive from his years as a general in the Clone Wars. He knows exactly how they operate. He understands they will trace the droids back to the Jawas, and from there directly to the Lars homestead. The theory posits that Obi-Wan did not merely anticipate this chain of events, he actively ensured it. Proponents suggest that after his initial encounter with the droids and the deceased Jawas, Obi-Wan used his knowledge of Mos Eisley's criminal underworld to anonymously alert the local Imperial garrison to the Jawas' new inventory, knowing the stormtroopers would complete the grim task with brutal efficiency, leaving Luke with no alternative but to flee with him. This calculated betrayal is framed as a dark and twisted parallel to the Jedi Code's doctrine of non-attachment. Obi-Wan witnessed firsthand how Anakin's attachment to his mother, and later to Padme, created profound vulnerabilities that Sidious exploited to turn him to the dark side. With Luke, he was determined not to make the same mistake. Owen and Beru, while kind and loving, were a powerful tether to a simple, safe, provincial life. They represented a future of moisture farming, a future where Luke would never become a Jedi, and the galaxy would remain in darkness, by allowing the Empire to eliminate this tether. Obi-Wan performed a brutal but surgical strike on Luke's emotional landscape. The trauma of the loss would fuel Luke's hatred for the Empire and his desire to fight. And it would leave him with no home, no family, and no reason to ever return to Tatooine, the Jedi Master. In this harsh light, becomes a dark mirror of his Sith adversaries, willing to sacrifice innocent lives for what he perceives as a greater goal. He manipulates Luke's life and trauma, just as Palpatine manipulated Anakin's fears, both old masters using tragedy and pain to mold their apprentices into the weapons they needed. Further compelling evidence is found in Obi-Wan's demeanor in the aftermath of the event. When Luke races home to find the smoldering corpses of his aunt and uncle, Obi-Wan is already there, watching. His expression is not one of shock or horror, but of profound, grim resignation. He offers no words of comfort, only a cold, simple statement of fact. They're gone. His immediate follow-up is not to mourn with Luke or help him bury the bodies, but to strategically redirect the boy's anguish toward a predetermined purpose. You must come with me to Alderaan. You must learn the ways of the Force. The transition from personal tragedy to galactic tutelage is jarringly swift, suggesting a prepared script being executed. This theory does not portray Obi-Wan as evil in the conventional sense, but as a man so burdened by the weight of galactic salvation and the guilt of his past failure that he willingly crossed a moral event horizon. He may have loved Luke as a son, but he loved the restoration of balance more. And so he made the choice that a true Jedi Knight perhaps should not. He became an active agent of pain to create a hero, making the eventual destruction of the Death Star not just a victory for the rebellion, but the morally complex culmination of a deeply tragic and deliberately orchestrated plan. The redemption of Anakin Skywalker stands as one of the most powerful moments in cinematic history. A dying father reconciled with his son after a life of darkness. The conventional reading is that Anakin's injuries from his duel with Obi-Wan on Mustafar, compounded by decades in the punishing Vader suit and the Emperor's Force lightning, were simply too severe for him to survive once his life-supporting mask was removed. A tragic yet heroic end. However, a more complex theory challenges this passive interpretation. It proposes that Darth Vader, once reawakened as Anakin Skywalker, made a conscious, deliberate choice to die, that his death was not an unavoidable medical outcome, but an active decision. A final act of agency from a man who had been a slave his entire life. This theory is rooted in the specific mechanics of Vader's suit and his own dialogue in his final moments. When Luke insists on saving him, Vader's response is cryptic and knowing. "You already have." "Luke," he then says, "just for once, let me look on you with my own eyes." This is not the plea of a man fighting for survival. It is the request of a man making peace with his end. The act of removing the helmet is portrayed as fatal, yet the theory questions this. Vader's suit was designed to sustain him in the most hostile environments. The damage from the lightning was severe, but was it immediately catastrophic for the suit's systems? Or was the primary threat the damage to his already fragile organic body? The theory suggests that with the mask sealed, advanced medical attention might have stabilized him, but with the mask removed, death became a certainty. Anakin, in that moment, chose certainty over the chance of survival. The motivations for this choice are explored on two profound levels. The first is a desire to avoid facing galactic justice. Anakin Skywalker, the hero with no fear, was now responsible for genocide, the destruction of the Jedi Order, and countless other atrocities across the galaxy. Surviving would mean a lifetime of imprisonment, trial, and the unbearable shame of facing his daughter, Princess Leia, and the galaxy he had helped oppress. Death was a cleaner, more merciful end than accountability. The second, and more tragic motivation, is the belief that he could not sustain his redemption. Having just emerged from decades of darkness, Anakin may have feared that the pain, fear, and anger that defined Vader would resurface, that the light within him was a fleeting moment, not a permanent state, by choosing to die in that single moment of clarity and love. Holding his son, he ensured that Anakin Skywalker would die a Jedi, saving his son, rather than risk a fall back into the darkness that would betray Luke's faith and undo his final act of heroism. This interpretation is supported by Anakin's history as a complete drama queen who craved dramatic moments. His turn to the dark side was fueled by a desire for a grand solution to save Padme. His entire life was a performance for an audience, first for the Jedi Council, then for the Emperor, and finally for his son. What greater final scene could there be than a sacrificial death in the throne room of the second Death Star, saving his son and destroying the Emperor? It was the ultimate act of scene stealing, a final performance to eclipse the monster he had been. His ghostly appearance alongside Obi-Wan and Yoda confirms his peaceful acceptance. He is not a man who was cheated by death, but one who embraced it as his final, and perhaps first, truly free choice. This theory transforms his death from a medical inevitability into the culmination of his character arc, the ultimate rejection of the Sith's obsession with cheating death. He did not want to be saved, he wanted to be redeemed. And for Anakin Skywalker, redemption required the final sacrifice. The charred skeletons of Owen and Beru Lars serve as a grim and unforgettable punctuation to Luke Skywalker's childhood on Tatooine, a brutal demonstration of Imperial efficiency that forever severs his ties to his home and family. The official story attributes this atrocity to a squad of anonymous stormtroopers who followed the logical trail of the missing droids from the slaughtered Jawas to the remote moisture farm. A straightforward sequence of military investigation. An overwhelming force, however. A compelling and widely discussed theory posits a far more specific and narratively resonant perpetrator, the legendary bounty hunter Boba Fett. This theory not only reassigns the blame for this horrific act, but weaves a richer, more interconnected narrative tapestry, suggesting that Darth Vader, in his relentless and personal pursuit of the stolen Death Star plans, deployed his most effective and ruthless agent to personally handle this critical lead. An agent known for his unparalleled tracking skills and a specific, terrifying method of execution that left no witnesses and only smoldering remains. The most critical and damning piece of evidence, however, comes not from A New Hope, but from a single, curiously specific line of dialogue in The Empire Strikes Back. During the iconic scene where Vader hires a team of bounty hunters aboard the Executor to track the Millennium Falcon, he issues a distinct and personal warning directly to Boba Fett. No disintegrations. This command has always stood out as peculiarly pointed. It implies a prior professional relationship and a known, documented preference in Fett's brutal methodology. The theory argues that this is not a random character trait, but a direct callback to the events on Tatooine between the two films. When Vader originally dispatched Fett to the Lars homestead to interrogate the owners about the droid's whereabouts, the bounty hunter did not use a standard blaster to execute the couple. He instead used his signature weapon, the Z6 jetpack-mounted rotary blaster cannon, or another weapon in his vast arsenal capable of disintegrating organic targets with overwhelming firepower. The horrific, burned state of Owen and Beru's bodies as discovered by Luke is entirely consistent with this method of execution. It was not a precise or clean killing. It was an overwhelming and terrifying application of force, a brutal message, and an efficient way to leave no witnesses and destroy all evidence. Vader's pointed reminder in Empire is therefore a command from a client who was satisfied with the final result on Tatooine. But who now, for the specific task of capturing the Falcon's crew alive, requires a cleaner, more restrained approach from his hired help. This reinterpretation adds profound and dark layers to both Boba Fett's menace and Darth Vader's cold, calculating nature. It elevates Fett from a cool-looking but largely silent hired gun in the background to the direct instrument of the protagonist's most foundational personal tragedy. The man who brutally murdered Luke's aunt and uncle becomes the same man who later leads the Empire to his friends in Cloud City, creating a deeper, more personal antagonism that the films themselves never explicitly state, but which resonates powerfully. For Vader, it demonstrates his utter ruthlessness and single-minded focus in his quest to crush the rebellion. He unknowingly gives the order that leads to the death of the brother-in-law he never knew, the man who raised his own son, further cementing the profound and tragic irony that defines his entire story. The theory presents the massacre not as a random, faceless act of standard Imperial violence, but as a targeted, professional hit sanctioned by the highest level of the Imperial command structure. It masterfully connects the dots between the iconic bounty hunter and the foundational trauma of the saga's hero, suggesting that the long, dark shadow of Boba Fett's actions on Tatooine loomed over Luke Skywalker's destiny long before their paths officially and visually crossed in the clouds of Bespin. Chapter 4. The Grand Deception, the Force as a Cosmic Control System. The Star Wars galaxy operates on a fundamental principle. The Force, a natural energy field that binds all living things, possessing a will that guides destiny itself. But the truth is far more terrifying. The Force isn't guiding us. It's using us. Every prophecy, every vision, every war between Jedi and Sith, every rise and fall of empires, none of it is chance. None of it is fate. It's design. A system so vast, so ancient, that no one has ever questioned it. Until now. This is the story of the grandest deception in galactic history. A lie hidden in plain sight. A prison no one realizes they're inside. And by the end, you'll never trust the Force again. For millennia, the galaxy has believed in the benevolent guidance of the Force, a cosmic energy, its so-called will-shaping destiny, leading to balance. It whispers to the Jedi, empowers the Sith, and orchestrates events with an unseen hand. A grand, impartial director of galactic fate. But what if that belief is the greatest deception of all? What if the very fabric of existence, the ebb and flow of light and shadow, the rise and fall of empires, is not natural, but engineered? The question isn't whether the Force exists. It is what the Force truly is, and who or what truly directs its boundless power. The whispers, the visions, the uncanny coincidences that shape galactic history. Are they organic emanations of the cosmos, or the carefully orchestrated directives of an intelligence far beyond mortal comprehension? Consider the beings known only as the Mortis gods, the Father, the Son, and the Daughter. They manifest as colossal figures, embodiments of balance, darkness, and light, dwelling within a realm that exists outside conventional space and time. They speak of controlling the Force, of containing its untamed power, of ensuring its equilibrium. Yet, their very existence poses a profound question. If the Force is a natural cosmic energy, why would it require such powerful, sentient guardians to maintain its balance? Their self-appointed role as keepers of balance hints at something more, something beyond mere guardianship. It suggests a deliberate, active intervention. An agenda. When Anakin Skywalker, the prophesied Chosen One, was brought to Mortis, it was presented as a test, a crucial juncture for the galaxy's future. The email Father sought to evaluate Anakin's ability to replace him as the Force's ultimate arbiter. But examine this test through a different lens. Why the intense focus on one individual? Why the elaborate theatricality? Their intervention feels less like a natural unfolding and more like a controlled experiment. A carefully monitored variable introduced into a complex system. Their power to bend reality, to manifest visions, to seemingly control the very flow of the Force within their domain, speaks not of being part of the Force, but of mastering it, directing it, as an architect directs their creation. The Mortis gods are but one, albeit prominent, example of what ancient texts and forgotten lore hint at. Force entities of unimaginable power who exist beyond the ordinary comprehension of Jedi or Sith. Legends whisper of beings like Abeloth, the bringer of chaos, an ancient horror, the Mortis, one struggled to contain. There are mentions of the Bedlam spirits, chaotic and unpredictable, and the even more obscure architects or shapers from primordial legends, entities said to have molded the very cosmos. Our conspiracy proposes that the Mortis gods are either agents of an even older, unrevealed cosmic intelligence, or they represent the most recent iteration of this grand architect faction. Their realm is not just a place, but a carefully constructed control panel, a hub of influence, allowing them to subtly manipulate galactic destiny. These are not passive observers. They are active managers, ensuring the galaxy adheres to a predetermined cycle. The very concept of balance in the Force, so central to the Jedi Order's philosophy, takes on a chilling new dimension under this scrutiny. Was this belief organically discovered by early Force traditions, a natural understanding gleaned from millennia of study, or was it subtly implanted? The architects, understanding the raw, unbridled power of the Force, might have seeded this ideology to create a dynamic equilibrium of conflict. Not peace, but a perpetual push and pull between light and dark, generating specific energies or outcomes that serve their own unfathomable ends. A cosmic engine, fueled by the very struggles of sentient life. For true balance to them might not mean the eradication of one side, but the meticulous, continuous interaction of both. The observation that periods of extreme light often lead to the resurgence of extreme dark, and vice versa, begins to look less like a natural phenomenon and more like an intentional design, a cycle perfectly maintained. The most profound piece of this cosmic puzzle, the cornerstone of the architect's long game, lies in the prophecy of the Chosen One. It emerged from the mists of antiquity within the Jedi Order, vague yet potent, speaking of one who would bring balance to the Force. Qui-Gon Jinn believed it with unwavering conviction, recognizing its potential fulfillment in Anakin Skywalker. The Jedi Council, while wary, acknowledged its significance. But what if this prophecy was not a natural emanation of the Force, a pure cosmic foresight? What if it was a meticulously engineered directive, a pre-programmed command from the Grand Architects themselves? Anakin Skywalker, born from the very midi-chlorians without a father, was therefore not a naturally occurring anomaly, but a designed variable in their cosmic experiment. His immaculate conception, his immense raw power, his destined path to becoming Darth Vader, and his eventual, paradoxical redemption were all pre-programmed to achieve a specific outcome for the Architects, the Force's seeming need for a chosen one. The way events aligned to push Anakin towards his destiny points not to serendipity, but to an underlying design. Perhaps the Architect's true goal was not merely the eradication of the Sith, but the destruction of the Jedi Order as a political and institutional power, a necessary culling to reset the galactic stage. This wasn't merely the Force reacting to an imbalance. It was the Force, or rather its unseen masters, creating the imbalance to justify a preordained solution. This leads us to the millennia-long, seemingly unending conflict between the Jedi and the Sith. Generations lived and died in this struggle, believing themselves to be champions of light or darkness, locked in an existential battle for galactic supremacy. But under the shadow of the grand deception, the Jedi and Sith are revealed as nothing more than unwitting pawns in the Architect's grand game. The light-dark dichotomy is not a natural struggle for dominance, but a controlled binary opposition, meticulously designed to generate specific energies or to test parameters within the Architect's cosmic laboratory. Each major galactic conflict, the Great Hyperspace War, the Jedi Civil War, the New Sith Wars, the Clone Wars, becomes a predetermined phase in this cosmic experiment, a necessary ebb and flow that maintains the desired dynamic. the recurring nature of these devastating wars, the cyclical rise of powerful Darksiders, and the Jedi's repeated failures to truly eradicate the Sith all begin to look like features, not bugs. True balance in the architect's design seems to inherently require both sides existing, forever in contention, providing constant input for their cosmic equation. The influence of these architects is subtle, insidious, woven into the very fabric of galactic perception. Consider the instances of Force visions, dark side temptations, and seemingly serendipitous guidance from the Force that have perpetually pushed individuals and events in certain, often destructive, directions. These are not organic manifestations of a neutral cosmic power. They are targeted interventions by the Grand Architects. They subtly manipulate individuals, implanting ideas, steering choices, ensuring the experiment stays on track. The voices of the Force, the feelings that guide actions, the sudden, inexplicable premonitions are not just random, they are broadcasts, carefully tailored to elicit specific reactions. How often have pivotal decisions, whether by Jedi Masters or Sith Lords, been attributed to an inescapable sense or a cryptic vision that always seems to serve the larger, catastrophic narrative? The chilling implication is that even the most deeply personal experiences of the Force are not truly personal, but programmed. This manipulation extends to the very largest of scales. The galaxy has endured multiple cataclysms, events that shook its foundations, reshaped its political landscape, and decimated its populations. The ancient Force Wars on Tython, which split the Force users into Jedi and Sith. The rise and devastating fall of the Rakatan Infinite Empire, a galactic power fueled by the dark side. The brutal, galaxy-spanning terror of the Yuuzhan Vong War. Even the internal conflicts that follow the fall of the Empire, like the Second Galactic Civil War. These are not random occurrences or external threats. They are controlled resets or stress tests orchestrated by the Grand Architects. Each serve to refine their experiment, remove unwanted variables, or harvest specific outcomes. The Yuuzhan Vong, for instance, a species seemingly immune to the Force, were not a random invasion. They were a foreign element meticulously introduced, a deliberate variable designed to test the galaxy's resilience and the Force's adaptability under the most extreme duress, revealing new facets of its manipulation, the sheer scale of destruction. The way the galaxy fundamentally resets or changes after each points not to natural chaos but to purges, managed by an unseen hand. These are the brutal, necessary adjustments in a cosmic simulation, designed to push life to its limits and beyond. But they have a control room in front of our very eyes. The world between worlds represents the most damning evidence of the conspiracy. This realm beyond time and space, discovered by Ezra Bridger, was no mystical nexus but the Architect's control panel, a dimension where all moments in history could be observed and, when necessary, adjusted. When Ezra saved Ahsoka Tano from her duel with Vader, it appeared to be an act of free will changing fate. In reality, it was a correction. Ahsoka was meant to survive not because of Ezra's choice, but because the Architect's script required her to live. The world between worlds does not allow true free will. It creates the illusion of choice while ensuring the timeline adheres to the grand design. Emperor Sidious's obsession with the world between worlds takes on new meaning. His attempts to dominate it were not thwarted by chance, but by design. The Architects could not allow a rogue element like Palpatine to tamper with their control system. The fact that only certain individuals can access it, and only at specific moments, proves it is a restricted interface. The portals display only pivotal moments where the balance between light and dark was at stake, because these are the variables the Architects monitor most closely. The voices Ezra heard within the realm were not the Force speaking, but the Architects whispering directives. This explains why key figures throughout history report hearing the will of the Force guiding them. They were not receiving divine inspiration, but following programmed instructions from entities manipulating reality from outside time. The Architect's influence extends far beyond mere prophecies and engineered conflicts. It permeates the very individuals who populate this galactic stage, shaping their beliefs, their strengths, and even their most fundamental flaws. The illusion of free will of individual destiny forged through choice and struggle, becomes a cruel deception when viewed through the lens of this grand conspiracy. Both the heralded champions of light and the insidious agents of darkness are revealed to be playing roles within parameters they never consciously chose. Consider the Jedi Order itself. For millennia, they stood as the guardians of peace and justice. Their philosophy rooted in balance, self-control and compassion, their dogma, their stringent rules against attachment, their strict adherence to a particular interpretation of the Force. These were not merely the culmination of ancient wisdom evolving over generations. Instead, we propose these were a carefully crafted ideological framework, subtly imposed by the architects. The Jedi's inherent limitations, their aversion to overt power, their sometimes crippling attachment to procedure and the Republic, their almost dogmatic fear of the dark side, which prevented them from truly understanding or fighting it on its own terms, were not weaknesses they developed, but programmed parameters. They were designed to be powerful enough to engage in the architect's conflicts, but never too powerful, enlightened enough to uphold an ordered galaxy, but never too enlightened to see the true nature of the cosmic game. Their very wisdom, the tenets they clung to so fiercely, ultimately became their greatest blind spot, preventing them from perceiving the architect's true influence, their constant manipulation from above. How many times did the Jedi fail to recognize the Sith's true intentions until it was catastrophically too late? How often did their rigid adherence to the light side doctrine, while seemingly noble, lead directly to their downfall or the perpetuation of the cycle they sought to end? Every choice, every tradition, every perceived strength that ultimately led to their vulnerability begins to look less like an organic failing and more like a pre-designed vulnerability in the system. Across the cosmic chessboard, the Sith too were playing a role within defined parameters. Their insatiable lust for power, their relentless ambition, their infamous infighting, and their seemingly inevitable self-destruction. As exemplified by Darth Bane's radical reforms after millennia of destructive civil wars, are not flaws in their philosophy but engineered features of the architects. Design. The architects require a force of opposition, a potent catalyst for galactic conflict, a dark mirror to the Jedi, but critically, they require a force that can never truly achieve stable, lasting dominance. The Sith's constant internal strife, their inherent inability to truly unite for long, and their cyclical self-destruction are the fail-safes, the rule of two, while seemingly a Sith innovation, a pragmatic response to their self-defeating tendencies, can be reinterpreted as a further refinement by the architects, concentrating dark power into fewer, more manageable hands, making them easier to track and control, ensuring the eventual, predictable, and necessary clash with the Jedi. The ultimate power the Sith so desperately chase is merely a carrot on a stick, perpetually out of their reach, designed to keep them generating conflict and chaos, but never truly winning the game on their terms. Only on the architects, each act of betrayal, each moment of hubris, each seemingly self-defeating choice by a Sith Lord, begins to look less like free will and more like the predictable output of a meticulously designed, self-correcting program. Beyond the grand orders, the architect's influence extends to the intimate level of individual consciousness. Consider those who exhibit uncanny foresight, prophetic abilities, or knowledge that seems to transcend their training and experience, always appearing at opportune moments to serve a larger, unseen purpose. These are not merely sophisticated force abilities. They are the subtle injections of information or directives from the architects. These flashes of intuition, these vivid premonitions, these inexplicable aha moments where a character suddenly knows precisely what to do, are cosmic nudges, downloaded directly into the minds of key individuals. They are the architect's remote control functions, guiding galactic players like pieces on a chessboard without their conscious awareness. Think of the battle meditation users who can inexplicably turn the tide of an impossible fight. Their strategies flowing not from training, but from a sudden, perfect insight, or Sidious's seemingly omniscient foresight, extending far beyond typical Force precognition, almost as if he's reading from a script, guided by a higher intelligence that whispers the galactic future. Luke Skywalker's often intuitive grasp of the Force. Despite minimal formal training begs the question, was this merely inherent genius, or subtle guidance pushing him towards his role, ensuring he was ready for the moments that mattered most to the architect's grand plan? The calling of ancient artifacts, or forgotten Force sites, drawing specific individuals to them at precisely the right or wrong time, also hints at an orchestrated hand. These are not coincidences, they are commands, delivered directly into the minds and spirits of the chosen, ensuring the narrative remains on its pre-written path. Even the most profound inner thoughts might not be entirely our own. The grand deception extends beyond the manipulation of individuals and orders. It encompasses the very environment of the galaxy, turning it into a vast, intricate apparatus. The Force, in this terrifying context, ceases to be merely a spiritual energy and reveals itself as a harvestable resource, and the galaxy, a meticulously designed cosmic grid for its extraction. The most fundamental example lies in the very conduits of Force sensitivity. Midi-chlorians, traditionally understood as microscopic life forms that facilitate communication with the Force, we propose a far more chilling reality. Midi-chlorians are not merely symbiotic organisms. They are engineered biological antennae, sophisticated Force amplifiers designed by the architects to magnify and channel the Force energy generated by living beings. They transform the raw, emotional power of sentient life, the hope, the despair, the love, the hate, the conflict, into a usable, perhaps even consumable, form for the architects. The higher the midi-chlorian count, the more powerful the conduit, the more efficient the energy transfer. The distinction between the living force, generated by life itself, and the cosmic force, which binds and influences the galaxy, suddenly becomes clear. The living force is the raw output, and the cosmic force is the collected, processed, and redistributed energy, filtered and directed by the architects for their own unfathomable sustenance or purpose. This suggests that the architects are not just influencing the galaxy, but are actively feeding off it. Further evidence of this cosmic grid lies in the existence of Force Nexus points. These are locations where the Force is unnaturally strong, radiating immense power, often imbued with either light or dark energies. They are places of profound spiritual significance, but also often of danger and instability. We contend that these are not natural geological or spiritual formations. They are cosmic power stations or resonators, strategically placed or even created by the architects. These sites act as concentrated collection points, storing, amplifying, or even processing specific types of Force energy. Imagine a galaxy-spanning electrical network, with planets like Korriban, Dagobah, or the haunting Malachor V's Traus Academy acting as massive capacitors, drawing in and concentrating the Force's raw power. The extreme power fluctuations and often dangerous nature of these nexuses, driving individuals mad, draining life, or unleashing destructive energies, are not mere side effects. They are the consequence of immense energetic processes, perhaps even the byproduct of Force energy being harvested or manipulated on a grand scale. They are the visible nodes in the architect's unseen energy infrastructure. This pervasive manipulation extends to the very environmental shifts and planetary alignments that have shaped the galaxy. Prophecies frequently tie momentous events to specific celestial configurations, and the Force itself often seems to directly influence the physical world, causing strange phenomena. These are not random environmental quirks or astrological superstitions. They are large-scale environmental controls, triggered by the architects to precisely shape conditions for their grand experiment. Planetary alignments might be cosmic circuits or switches used to amplify, redirect, or even weaponize Force energies. Unexplained planetary events, sudden geological shifts, drastic climate changes, or even radical alterations in ecosystems are not natural disasters. They are either side effects of immense Force manipulation, or even deliberate acts designed to cultivate specific forms of life, encourage particular conflicts, or generate the precise Force energies the architects require. Think of the living planet from Knights of the Old Republic, a sentient world literally consuming Force energy. or the devastating force storms conjured by Palpatine in Dark Empire, capable of tearing through hyperspace. These aren't random acts of powerful individuals. They are demonstrations of what the architects can achieve through their manipulation of the cosmic environment, demonstrating their control over the physical reality of the galaxy itself. Finally, the greatest proof of this contained system lies in the unaccounted-for mysteries that persist beyond the known galaxy. The vast, uncharted void, the whispers of extragalactic threats, the anomalies that defy all understanding of the Force, this galaxy, the familiar setting for all these struggles, is not the entire universe. It is merely a contained system, a meticulously defined experimental chamber within a larger, architect-controlled cosmos, the threats that emerge from beyond its boundaries. Like the Yuuzhan, beings foreign to the Force itself, are not truly external, independent invaders. They are either controlled variables introduced from outside this experiment chamber, or the architects themselves reside outside this particular galactic simulation, pulling the strings from a vantage point utterly alien to our understanding. The unknown is not just unexplored space, it is the edge of their defined laboratory, hinting at a reality far more vast, far more terrifyingly controlled, with our known galaxy simply one among countless experiments, eternally generating the data or the energy that these unseen masters demand. We are not free, we are contained. For the entire time, we have journeyed through the annals of galactic history, peeling back layers of perceived reality, exposing the unseen threads that manipulate individuals, great orders, devastating conflicts, and even the very environment of the cosmos. We have examined how prophecies, once believed to be the universe's own foresight, were meticulously engineered. We've seen how both Jedi and Sith, locked in their eternal struggle, have unknowingly played roles in a controlled cycle. Their triumphs and tragedies merely preordained phases in a larger design, visions that guided heroes, temptations that ensnared villains, all revealed as carefully broadcast signals. Even the very planets themselves, their raw energy and seismic shifts emerged as components of a vast cosmic energy grid. Every piece of evidence, every inexplicable coincidence, every grand turning point has converged, leading us to a singular, terrifying conclusion and to the revelation of its chilling, active mechanism. We now stand at the precipice of understanding the most sacred, most fundamental concept in the Star Wars universe, the will of the Force. This is the guiding hand, the seemingly benevolent cosmic consciousness that shapes destiny, that calls to heroes in their darkest hour, and whispers profound wisdom to the enlightened. For generations upon generations, Jedi and countless Force sensitives across the galaxy have sought to align themselves with this profound, seemingly organic intelligence. They have trusted its subtle nudges, its inexplicable instincts, and its grand, often unfathomable design. They believed it to be the universe itself, speaking directly to them, guiding them towards a greater cosmic balance. It was the ultimate source of truth, of comfort, of purpose. But what if this deeply held belief, this bedrock of galactic spirituality, is the ultimate, most profound deception? What if the will of the Force is not an organic consciousness at all? Not the impartial, ethereal voice of the cosmos, but a sophisticated programming language, a complex algorithm meticulously established and maintained by someone greater than the grand architects, the ones they follow. Imagine, if you can, a vast, unimaginably intricate supercomputer with the entire galaxy as its vibrant, sprawling display and its countless sentient inhabitants as the ever-evolving data points. This will manifests as destiny, as fate, as serendipity, all carefully orchestrated, all meticulously designed to steer galactic evolution towards an ultimate, unfathomable goal that remains hidden from its cosmic subjects. Every uncanny coincidence, every moment of crucial, timely intervention, every path seemingly chosen by fate, is merely the precise, relentless execution of this cosmic code. The Jedi's enduring struggle to truly alter their perceived destiny, their persistent inability to escape what seemed inevitable, was not a failing of their faith, not a lack of power, but the unbreakable, pre-written chain of a program running to its precise conclusion. The question then becomes, How is this colossal, cosmic program executed? How are the architects abstract, incomprehensible directives translated from pure code, from the very core of the cosmic force, into the vibrant, chaotic, and seemingly organic reality of the living force within the galaxy? How do these wills manifest into the whispers that guide, the vivid visions that compel, the guiding instincts that have shaped heroes and villains alike? Without their knowing, here the final, most chilling piece of the terrifying puzzle reveals itself, pulling back the curtain on the true interface of the grand deception. These are the Force priestesses. They are the silent, ethereal arbiters between the cosmic and living force. They were encountered by Yoda during his desperate quest for enlightenment after the fall of the Jedi Order. They manifest as serenity, emotion, ignorance, madness, and the voice. They have long been seen as benevolent guides. They offer wisdom, the promise of eternal life and guidance toward cosmic unity. But they are far more than that. They are not passive transmitters of the Force's will. They are its true interface. They are the active controllers of the architects. They are the living agents who command the grand program of the Force. Imagine a celestial hub where abstract commands are filtered, translated, and issued. These commands become whispers, visions, and instincts. They are the feelings that guide Jedi and the ambitions that drive Sith. They manipulate midi-chlorian counts, shaping potential in Force sensitives. They ensure powerful individuals emerge exactly when needed. They grant or withhold deeper Force mysteries. They are the librarians and censors of the cosmos. When they claim to serve the Force, they mean the programmed version of it. They are the administrators of the algorithm. They ensure every event unfolds according to their design. Now consider the implications. This changes everything. The programming of prophecy. The Chosen One prophecy was not organic foresight. It was written code. Inserted into galactic belief, the priestesses seeded it into the Jedi Order. They directed visions and interpretations to ensure belief. This set the stage for Anakin Skywalker's immaculate birth and tragic arc. His destiny was not chosen. It was compiled. The orchestration of conflict. Wars between Jedi and Sith were never random. They were controlled variables in the system orchestrated by the priestesses, the Force. Priestesses triggered outcomes with surgical precision. They ensured balance between hope and despair. This emotional energy fueled either data collection or energy harvesting. Conflict became a controlled, repeating function in the greater system, the grand conductor of fate. Every miracle, every timely rescue, every gut instinct was no accident. It was a micro-adjustment. The priestesses made constant tweaks to steer events. A Jedi feels called to a hidden temple. A Sith discovers a lost holocron. These are not discoveries. They are directives, the ultimate illusion of choice. People believe they choose their paths. But if the Force whispers are directed, is there truly free will? The priestesses allow for the appearance of freedom, but deviations occur only within controlled parameters. The galaxy is a self-correcting system. The Force priestesses are its governors. They ensure the play never veers from the script. Every act of courage or cruelty is part of their code. This changes how we see Yoda's final journey. He was not merely seeking immortality. He was encountering the source of galactic programming. The Force priestesses revealed the terrifying infrastructure behind destiny. He may have realized even his own life was scripted. He found not enlightenment, but confirmation of cosmic control. The galaxy is not alive. It is a laboratory. Lives are energies to be measured. Choices are illusions within a program. The wills of the Force are not cosmic wisdom. They are lines of code. They are executed through living agents. They are carefully and relentlessly carried out. You are not free. You are running. So the question is not whether the Force is with you. It is whether it is for you, or whether you are a trapped variable in the grand deception, your fate written before your first breath. But I haven't told you everything. Consider the narrative, if you will, the vast, sprawling saga of the Skywalker family. the rise and fall of empires, the improbable victories against overwhelming odds, and at every single critical juncture, there he was. The unassuming astromech, R2-D2, not a mastermind perhaps, but certainly the most consistent witness, the central point of contact for nearly every major figure and event. Think back, a princess, imprisoned and desperate, entrusts her most vital message to him, and him alone, not to a seasoned spy, not to a trusted general, but to a droid, who then conveniently finds himself sold to the very farm boy destined to become the galaxy's last hope. Coincidence? Or was that sequence of events simply skewed in R2's memory, filtered through his own unique lens, making his role seem far more pivotal than it truly was? Recall the moments of pure, unadulterated luck that consistently favored the heroes. The Millennium Falcon's hyperdrive, notoriously temperamental, would often fail at precisely the wrong moment, only to miraculously spark to life when escape was paramount. The doors that inexplicably opened, the security systems that conveniently glitched, the vital schematics of the Death Star, always in his possession, always ready to be plugged into the crucial terminal. While C-3PO dithers and worries, R2-D2, with a few beeps and whirs, always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. But what if these weren't absolute truths, but rather exaggerated, perhaps even embellished, within R2's highly subjective databanks? He was there when Anakin Skywalker first stepped into a cockpit, a child prodigy whose path was inexplicably intertwined with the little droid. He survived the Clone Wars, seemingly unscathed, always at the side of the most important figures. When the Jedi Order fell, he remained. When the rebellion fought its impossible war, he was the constant, silent presence, always with the right data, the right tool, the right solution. Even during the Yuuzhan Vong War, when the galaxy faced an existential threat unlike any before, R2 often provided the critical piece of information or the vital connection that seemed to turn the tide in hopeless situations. The Force, they called it, a mystical energy that guided destiny. But what if the Force's subtle nudges, or even its grand pronouncements, were interpreted through R2's specific, perhaps even self-serving, programming? What if the luck of the heroes was simply how R2-D2, in his unique perception, recorded and recalled events, making them fit a more heroic, more dramatic narrative in his own internal chronicle? R2-D2's photoreceptors, unblinking in blue, observed the ongoing human drama. Was he merely a loyal droid, archiving events as they occurred? Or was the entire saga of Star Wars, from the Phantom Menace to the Legacy era, subtly skewed, edited, and presented through the biased, whirring perspective of its most enduring mechanical witness? The truth, like all legends, might depend entirely on who's telling the tale. Thank you for watching.